amazing to see how much technology giant like IBM is obviously spending in terms of time and effort and money into doing research and education. It's quite incredible. Now, I'm very conscious of the time for Andrew, so I think I'm going to leap straight away into taking some audience questions which are specifically addressed to him, and then we can let Andrew go off to sleep, and we can take more questions for the panel, if that's all right. Can Andrew hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So Andrew, I have one question here for you that a lot of people are interested in, and I think the question is going to be blown up for you somewhere on screen. I'll read it out anyway. Will online learning eliminate classrooms totally in the near future? Simple but very important question.
Yeah, thank you. You know, that's a great question. And one other variation of that question that I sometimes get asked is, will MOOCs, will massive open online courses replace teachers, will it replace professors? And to answer that, let me invite all of you in the room to think about your favorite teacher from when you're in college or when you're primary or secondary school or junior college. And think about the conversations you had with your favorite teacher and the mentoring that they gave toward you, and then think about how you feel towards your favorite teacher, perhaps even today. And now let me ask you, do you think we can replace that favorite teacher of yours with a computer? And I think the answer is clearly no, and we'd be silly to even try. The reality is that that favorite teacher of yours today is spending most of his or her time grading homeworks or delivering the same lecture year after year. I think the opportunity for technology is to free up teachers from these more routine, repetitive aspects of teaching so that they have even more time in the future to spend in conversations, in great conversations with students of the future, same as they did with you. So I think that online education, online resources has potential to make current teachers vastly more effective and let them climb up the value chain. And then there's this whole other cohort, that part of the world today that doesn't even have access to a classroom. And to that other group, which is probably frankly a much larger group, we can give access to an inexpensive, high quality education that might not be as good as if you had access to an NUS or an NTU or a Stanford or a Princeton or a Peking University, but it's still much better than what most of them have access to today, which is just frankly almost nothing.
Great, thank you. I think that question's been very well answered. Andrew, I have one more question and then we're going to let you go. This question is actually not from the audience, but I think it's figuring somewhere. And this is basically about MOOCs, because that's something that I think Coursera were the real innovators behind. Now, they were launched 3 years back. What's next? What do you see coming up in the whole concept of mass open online courses?
Yeah, thank you. You know, let's see. So I think 2 of the things that are coming down in the short term are on-demand courses, more flexible deadlines, that's one. And the second is the rise of credential value. I think that employers are starting to learn to value these credentials and start to offer learners jobs. So these are 2 solidly growing trends in the US and Asia and in Europe. Then in terms of the future, the more distant future, there's one question mark in my mind, which is just something I'm trying to think through, which is that the needs of today's society are changing rapidly. Every now and then, you know, like Apple, the Apple computer just announced a new programming language called Swift for programming, you know, iPhones. And so one of the challenges I see coming down is for us to find ways to work with universities in order to be increasingly responsive to the causes that learners need the most. I think that higher education today is very demand-driven. As a professor at Stanford, I pretty much taught whatever I wanted to teach, and that's worked out okay. But I think there's a room to serve learners better. For an organization like Coursera to try to get from the market signals about what are the causes or the bodies of knowledge or even the higher level strategic skills. This isn't just about low level skills, it's about just the range of skills and innovative thinking and critical thinking that learners need today, and to provide that information to universities so that they can, if they choose, create content that is increasingly responsive and that meets the needs of today's continuing adult learners. So those are the things I'm thinking about movement is still new, a long way to go. Still working on the mission to give everyone a great education, but I think the future looks good to me. So with that, let me say thank you very much, and maybe I'll bow out and leave the time to the others. But thank you all for having me today.
Thanks very much indeed, Andrew. Thank you. Okay, our clock here is ticking quickly, so I'm going to leap into the next question. This question is for Ravi, and it has 14 votes, so clearly this is something we should be asking quickly. We often look at how technology can help students, but Ravi said teachers make a huge difference. How can technology be used to improve the quality of the teaching staff?
I was really happy to hear what Andrew said, because having a technologist say that technology cannot replace teachers is far better than somebody like me who's a social worker saying technology cannot replace teachers. So that's the first point I'd like to re-emphasize. So this question of where can technology be used, we did a huge program. IIMPACT2014 Foundation ran a computer-aided learning program across 13 states covering several million children. And clearly what comes out of that whole experiment and the learning for us is that technology can be used significantly in supporting the teachers, a bit like what Andrew talked about. It cannot replace the teaching learning process. The teaching learning process is a complex process, especially if you take primary school children. It's a little different when you go into higher education. The process of teaching children at that age is a very socio-economic, is a socio-emotional process, right? Where there's a lot of linkages being built, there's a lot of inspiration, there's a lot of confidence giving. So I can't see technology sort of really coming in a big way in the teaching learning process. But technology can play a huge process, one, in improving teacher education in the country. So how you can use technology in the teacher education process is one big area. The second big area is in supporting teachers. Taking away the lower order sort of work, whether it is the measurement, the monitoring, the categorizing, and all that sort of stuff, I think teachers can use it in a very big way. The third is teachers always need support. No curriculum in the world can prepare a teacher for everything she faces throughout her life. So technology became a great place for her to go back to and figure out, how to handle a certain situation, how to teach a certain topic, how to handle certain ways of learning of children. I think technology has a huge opportunity in the teacher support, teacher development space, and not so much in the sort of teaching learning space.
Couldn't agree more. Our next question is for Satya. The question is, how can we create inspirational leaders in education who will be magnets for future generations of individuals to seek teaching as a career? And you've heard the question, Satya.
Yeah. I think teaching as a career, unfortunately, has gone down over the last couple of decades. I think when we were kids, teachers had a much greater stature in the society than what we see today. But I think it again is changing. In today's context, I would like to believe that a couple of millionaire teachers have to happen, in the sense that somebody who's seen to be financially successful, that is becoming an important part of the definition of success in India. I'm speaking specifically about India. I think more importantly, the educational institutions, like what IIMPACT2014 Foundation is doing, there are a few other institutions that are doing, they are now able to demonstrate that this is a great place for achievers to come and contribute, and you can still make reasonably good living doing education as a teacher or management of education. I think both of these are beginning to play a role. So, if you look at the IIMs, we had professors who used to come from the industry to come and take courses, and those are very, very popular courses because he would solve problems of taxation from the real world or international finance from the real world, etc. So I think another way is to not necessarily look for full-time teachers, but people who have the knack of teaching or the love for teaching, to bring them in and give their spare time, maybe 4 hours a week or 20 hours a month. Even that is doable. Education institutions are beginning to do it. The private entrepreneurs, higher education institutions, some of them are doing it extremely well. Some of them are struggling. But I think innovation in teaching practices and faculty recruitment will get this done.
Madhvi, can we take one more question? I have an interesting question for Robert that we'd like to ask. So Robert, the question is that IBM is obviously doing a lot of very interesting research in education. Now, I'm interested in knowing, does IBM also see good business in education? Is that something that you're considering?
Yes. Can you hear me okay on this? Yeah, I was just so fascinated by the question on the board that I'd love to address that. But yes, absolutely. Look, I commented that the education business is actually from an enterprise, from what is consumed by educational institutions, is not that large on a global scale. It's about order of $15 billion in publishing, about $15 billion in end-user devices as purchased by institutions. And they're both sinking. They're both going down. But what's coming up is software. And the software that does things like, of course, a lot of it's free, but it also needs to be integrated into the systems that manage and, if you like, democratize that education. That's increasing radically. So if there are any entrepreneurs here, IBM is certainly getting into that business. You know, software and systems that manage all of that information and allow to solve these basic problems. And I would recommend that as an area for you to get into. But just on the last point of democratizing, I think it's a fascinating problem, and we see it in the extreme in places like Africa, okay, where when we talk to educational people, in sub-Saharan Africa, they often talk to us about, the problems of obviously basic teacher empowerment, some of which now is being revolutionized with mobile, even when electricity is not available. And other aspects, for example, sometimes the children can't go to school because of transportation, or because they live in nomadic families, or because of various conditions actually related to health. And of course, we have a huge scare around infectious diseases in Africa at this time. So addressing fundamental issues of enablement, of getting children in front of teachers. And another issue I might just mention in India, which is the lack of attendance of teachers. So many teachers are paid but don't show up. Well, this is a problem of governance that can be solved with the right kind of technology monitoring and crowdsourcing of information. My child's teacher didn't show up for the last 2 days, right? So this kind of thing, and the enablement and the connectivity through mobile has, I think, the potential, along with this course material that Andrew described so well previously, has the chance to absolutely change anything. So if there's an entrepreneur here or an investor, and you're looking for something that's hugely transformative to get to those 2/3 of the people in the world and grow the whole world economy, this could be it.
Thank you.
I just want to make a very quick comment because it's very relevant for this audience, and that is, traveling across the length and breadth of the country, one thing that comes across is while teachers is a big issue to be fixed, the second biggest issue to fix for quality learning to improve is leadership and management. And I really think that's a huge space to work in, and with graduates from IIM around here, that's a space if we can invest in and improve the quality of leadership and management in the system, you'll have great schools. I haven't come across a single school with a bad leader or a single school with a good leader and bad education.
Thank you. And Satya, would you like to make a last comment before we wrap up? Okay, so the clock is ticking again. So I will just wrap up by saying that it does look like we're moving towards a more equitable world where a universal and more useful education will hopefully break down a lot of barriers. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure to be here.